low light, the ZV-1 starts detecting faces at a significantly lower ISO, so the autofocus win goes to the ZV-1 by a slim margin. Next up, a quick test of audio so you can hear how the built-in mics on this camera sound. Here by the river right now, and you can probably hear a bit of wind. Now hopefully the same HLG picture profile. I like both, and I would feel confident getting good results when color grading either. Beautiful blurry background bokeh actually looks very similar for both cameras. Remember that while the ZV-1 has a wider aperture lens, the A6400 has a larger sensor, which is why overall the bokeh and depth of field is so similar for both cameras. And in a controlled setting, here's the ZV-1, and here's the A6, like the example you're seeing here. There are some caveats like that short recording time, but it is a genuinely useful feature that can give you some stunning results. So the ZV-1 takes the slow motion win, and there is more on ZV-1 slow motion in the description. All of it is better than terrible fake slow motion where you impersonate the Matrix. Probably not good for my back. Next up, the power bank. There's a video in the description where I talk about a bunch of inexpensive accessories that can help expand the capability of the ZV-1, but there is a limit. Will this ever be a telephoto camera with a much greater zoom range? No. Will it ever give you more bokeh or better low light results? No. The ZV-1 is great straight out of the box, but you can't change its capabilities too much from that starting point. This is where the A6400 shines. Want better stabilization but not using a gimbal? There's a lens for that. Want a much bigger zoom range? There's a lens for that. Want a wider aperture for more bokeh or better low light? There's a lens for that. Want to be smarter, richer, and more attractive? On the A6400, you'll need to cover your face. Not due to shame, like I usually do, but to make the focus switch to the product you're holding. The ZV-1 also has a built-in ND filter, which is nice for allowing a wider aperture and lower shutter without overexposure when you're shooting in bright conditions. Nice, but not a game changer, like expandability. This is where we think about how to expand your camera's capabilities to either make them do more or compensate some of their flaws. The ZV-1 has good flow. I normally vlog with a grip extension like my friend here, the Gorilla Pod, and here you can see that combined with the various different types of stabilization side by side. We have the A6400 at the top, ZV-1 with standard steady shot on the left, and the same ZV-1 footage stabilized in Catalyst on the right. We're now going to push the extremes with a running test. Then,
lenses. So it slows down the process a bit beyond just the additional cost. Let's talk battery life. I don't have any hard data on battery duration, but the M50 battery is twice the voltage of the Sony. Now, the M50 does have a larger sensor and a brighter screen, so it's going to draw more power, no question. Anecdotally, I can tell you that the Canon M50 lasted about 2 or 3 times as long as the Sony. I'd have to charge the Sony every 2 or 3 times for every... You hear the word best, ask yourself, best at what? The new Sony ZV-1 is ubiquitously being touted across the internet as the best camera for vloggers. And you know what? They're right. Wait, did I just say that? You were saying that and now you're contradicting yourself? Okay, I'm going to give you the too long did not watch answer. If this is vlogging to you, then yes, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better featured, more suitable camera for vlogging than the ZV-1. But us humans are all colors of the rainbow, and it's oh so very rare that we are just one thing, and that's why I together to pit this ZV-1 against the Canon M50. 2 very similar but very different cameras. Now, which one is right or best for you? Well, it's just there's no surprise here. The M50 has considerably more rolling shutter than the ZV-1. Now, if you are shooting video with the M50, it is worth mentioning that switching to 1080p and thus removing the pop and using the sensor definitely improves the rolling shutter, as is moving from 24 frames per second to 30 frames per second. I would hesitate to call these ZV-1 on the camera. Sony still delivers a very detailed image. Moving over to Canon, their position has always seemed to favor filmic softness versus sharpness. We've seen that in their cinema cameras, and the M50 is no exception. Compared to the Sony, the video looks like it's half the resolution. But indeed, these are both 4K images. Boosting your sharpening in the camera will help a little bit, and you can also choose the iPhone XR at full brightness is somewhere between the two. Moving on to menus. I've said this before, and it's worth repeating. You get used to whatever you're working with. Aesthetically, I do prefer the Canon menu, but it's throttled on the M50 by forcing you to go through each subpage. The Sony menu is essentially a carbon copy of all their other cameras, and you can navigate it by tab or subpage. Sony's menu feels a little bit more direct than that. When it comes to weight, the ZV-1 is half that of the M50 with a small kit lens, as it should be for a point and shoot. However, after walking around with it for a while, I can't say that one on a lot of weird artifacts. But here's where Sony really wins. For best results, turn the stability off and bring the footage into Catalyst Browse. The ZV-1 embeds gyroscopic data in the file, which it then uses to stabilize the image. Of course, this is going to crop into your image, and it's not the quickest method, but it is the most pleasing out of all the options. Either way, neither of these cameras are really able to compare to what you achieve. When it comes to low-light performance, I was very surprised to see Sony's small 1-inch sensor pull out ahead. 3200 ISO seems quite usable on the ZV-1, and it's only at 6400 do we really start to see wider than what I have, which is currently the 45. I would recommend the Canon 11-22 or the Rokinon 8 for a long time. When it comes to autofocus, both companies are considered to have the best autofocus in the industry, and I would say in 80% of the situations, the cameras performed comparably. In the cases where they didn't, I found the M50 to be a bit sluggish and sometimes wouldn't grab my face. This could also be the result of the kit lens I was using, or the lighting. This is the double-edged sword of interchangeable lenses. They can either elevate the performance of the camera or dampen it. And it's really hard for me to know exactly what is causing the situation with Canon, because Canon typically performs amazing. The two cameras have a somewhat different approach when it comes to stability. The M50 has an IBIS sensor, but can also be enhanced by using a stabilized lens, whereas the ZV-1 has an IBIS sensor as well, but it has an additional digital stability